Well, thank you for staying with us here on Morning Live. Now, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, coupled with the consequences of the national lockdown, continues to wreak havoc on many sectors of the economy. Domestic workers have not escaped this brunt, with thousands having lost their jobs since the outbreak of the global pandemic. But what this has also further exposed is the continued lack of adherence to some basic conditions of employment, with many of the domestics not being registered for UIF. Now, a newly launched South African mobile application is looking at how to help manage domestic employee relationships and also ensure that all parties legally comply with the country's HR laws. Now, the application, which targets employees from childminders, domestic workers to gardeners and drivers, was launched last month, and it administers all employment-related tasks, including legal employment contracts, pay slips and UIF payments. Hennie Heymans is CEO of MiVoice, and he joins us now to tell us more about this. Hennie, thanks so much for speaking to us here on Morning Live. Welcome to the show. Okay, just seemingly not getting Hennie's voice coming through there. Hennie, just let's try that again, because I can see your mouth moving, but no sound coming through.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Thanks for being with us, Hennie. So let's just start from the point of why you felt the need to come up with this app. And of course, I would imagine that you conducted some research prior to the creation of the app. So please tell us more about that.
100% thanks. I'm also the CEO of a large payment corporation, and we are very much involved in human rights, in equality, and in assisting NPOs. And from there, I identified one specific sector in the economy that is really sitting at the backburn, and that is the domestic market. You know, our domestic workers and our nannies are our most trusted and loved employees, and yet we don't really look after them. That relationship is a fine balance that's only based on relationships. And if anything is disturbed in the relationship, it is normally the employee that ends up with a problem. If you look at what happened in COVID, according to statistics, 250,000 domestic workers lost their jobs in COVID. 21,000 of them received UIF. Now that is clearly a serious problem. In 2019, the Department of Labour in the Western Cape already identified that only 40% of all households are compliant when it comes to their domestic relationships. So there's clearly a very big imbalance that needs to be addressed, and that is what we tackle. That is what we're addressing now.
And it's a very important issue that you raise, and the statistics are, of course, staggering, Hennie. But I would imagine not totally unexpected, given how informal the relationship between employers and employees have been when it comes to domestic workers for many years. So, you know, it's something that still needs to, I think, sink in for many people, that it is a relationship that needs to be formalized. But in coming up with this app, how exactly will this work, and how will it help the workers benefit in the first instance?
The app concentrates on what we identified through surveys as the biggest problem, and that is the inability to have all the knowledge at ease together in one place. So in the app, what we do is we link the employer and the employee, and we attend to everything for them just by means of a click. They can create their employment contract. They can, when the employee arrives at work, he or she can do the COVID-19 questionnaire. With geolocation, he or she can sign in and sign out in the afternoon. That way, there's record to build all the records for the payslip and all the records for leave later in the year. There's a task manager where the employer can pass tasks through the employee, He or she can query that in-app and sign it off. And new tasks can be set. Even the employee can put through a message to the employer to bring milk or eggs home or whatever. Leave is applied for in the app, and then at the end of the month, a payslip can be generated through the app. In our next phase, we will do UIF registration, Workmen's Compensation Act registration, the payments thereof, as well as the comprehensive reporting. So we take all of the admin schlep and where they don't have the knowledge about what to do out of their hands, and we just put it in front of them and say, just click through. And then added to that is the wonderful feature that the salary can be paid into the very same app that serves as a wallet as well.
So it's early days yet, Hennie. You only launched about a month ago, but what has the uptake been like? Are people warming to it? Are they taking it up?
We are super, super ecstatic. We thank you, South Africa, for realizing that this is indeed a problem and that this app solves the problem. We are really overwhelmed with the responses, with the downloads, and we have now seen successfully at the end of June the first payments going through the app. And already the people are now spending their money in the app. And the app can actually serve as a replacement of a bank account. It offers certain of the traditional banking features completely free of charge to the employee. He or she can continue having their own bank account, their normal traditional bank account, or completely replace it with the app.
So when it comes to the UIF deductions and payments, does the app take care of that as well, as in paying it over to the UIF, or how does it work in that regard?
We have a development team that is currently building that feature so that we can roll that out hopefully by August, latest September. You must realize from a year ago also, domestic workers can now claim workmen's compensation. So we're also addressing that.
And also, just in terms of the ease of using it, what is the app called? How do you access it? And how user-friendly is it, given that we are perhaps dealing with people who may have very little time on the one hand, but sometimes domestic workers who may not have great skill sets and the ability to use a complicated application, for example. How user-friendly is this app?
Let's start with the name. The name is MiVoice, spelled MiVoice. It's available in both the app and Android stores for downloading. Now, I am not a techie, and I've spent hours rerouting it back to the techies because for ease of use. I'm a firm believer of having it spoon-feed into my mouth. And that is exactly what we did. It is so easy to use.
I'm actually looking at it because I actually want to go through it just to test it myself, Hennie. So I'll give you feedback in that regard as well. But also just, going forward, this is, of course, an app that will require data to be used. Have you thought about that in terms of affordability, especially for the employee side of this particular app?
Yeah. Everything comes in stages, unfortunately. We will definitely bring in data free to the employee, also hopefully later this year still. I am asked a couple of times, but what if my worker does not have a smartphone? Let's be honest. If you as an employer loves this feature and see what it can do for you, we all have second-hand phones. Or you can buy for a few $100 a smallish smartphone. And if you don't want her to take it home, she can use it right there at your place. So there's a lot of ways to ensure that your employee is indeed covered. You will note when you start playing with it that there are other features in the app. For instance, there's an insurance policy for the employee. In the case of death in transfer to or from work, an amount will be paid to the estate of the employee. And in the case of hospitalization, an amount will be paid to both employer and employee for as long as that person is in hospital, maximum 20 days. That is so that the employer can at least, in that period, employ a Girl Friday. So we try to balance it both ways with the advantages. And then lastly, you'll see there for both employer and employee, there are buttons, security buttons, where you can immediately call an ambulance or you can even call armed response. It doesn't work in Timbuktu. There's no armed response in Timbuktu, but it does work in all the metros and all the big cities.
And Hennie, just before I let you go, is this app free or is there a cost associated to it?
It's 100% free to download. It is 100% free, all the features for use of the employee, except when he or she wants to draw cash. Unfortunately, all the banks, everywhere, you need to pay a fee when you draw cash. The employer, on the other hand, pays 49 Rand per month. So what we do is we call it subsidized banking. There's nothing like free banking in South Africa. So we're just using the 49 Rand of the employer, for which we give the employer his or her full benefits as well. And then we subsidize all the costs in the background to provide this free of charge to the employee.
Well, Hennie, thanks so much for speaking to us about this app. We'll certainly check it out. So thanks for sharing this with us. Hennie Heymans is, of course, the CEO of MiVoice. And this is an app, a mobile app that you can download that will help you with taking care of some of the administrative work around the employer-employee relationship as it pertains to domestic workers, childminders, gardeners, drivers, etc. So we'll have a look. You're free to have a look as well. Let's take a quick break before we hand you over to Valen for some sports news.